Hi, I'm Malika Bilad, filling in for Femi OK, and you're in this stream. Today is Cyprus on the road to reunification. Talks between two leaders are underway, and the mood is positive. But is that enough to make the divided island one again? Our digital producer, Omar Batar, is looking out for your live feedback. I'm excited about this show because there is a lot of community feedback already. The show hasn't even started.
Plenty of it, and plenty of it coming from Cyprus as well, which is always interesting. It's kind of, we have a lot of people who are in favor of unification, but they have varying levels of optimism about it. So you have Androla over here who says, of course Cyprus should be reunited. This is a realistic and feasible dream, but not everybody agrees. We have Umut over here who says, I hope we will, but I think we won't see it in the near future, but I hope my son will see Cyprus united. And finally, we also have this thought from Alex who says, cautiously optimistic. I've been hearing about how close we are since I was a child, but I've learned the hard way not to expect too much. Now, folks at home, we want to know what you think, so be sure to tweet us using the hashtag AJStream.
Hi, my name is Slava Luchnya, and I'm in the stream.
After years of tension and stalemate, UN brokered talks over Cyprus continue between the Greek and Turkish Cypriot leaders. And many signs are pointing toward a thaw in the relationship. On Monday, Cypriot President Nikos Anastasiadis and Turkish Cypriot leader Mustafa Akinci discussed unresolved core issues. According to the UN envoy, the talks are going well, and the next round is scheduled for the 10th of July. Confidence-building measures from both sides are underway, but obstacles like governance, property rights, and security persist. And the question of Turkey and its influence over the north of the island remains. Well, Cyprus has been divided since 1974, when supporters of a union with Greece staged a coup. Turkey subsequently invaded a part of the island in support of Turkish Cypriots. Days of furious fighting left many dead and thousands displaced. The UN established a 180-kilometer buffer zone that effectively partitioned the island and still separates it and the capital, Nicosia, till today. The northern third is inhabited by Turkish Cypriots and the southern two-thirds by Greek Cypriots. Now, on this program, we'll take a look at what the future holds for Cyprus and what it will take to get there. Well, to weigh in on that and much more from Nicosia, Ozdil Nami is Foreign Minister of the Republic of Northern Cyprus, that is Turkish-occupied Northern Cyprus. He's been at the negotiating table in the ongoing talks. In the UK, Mustafa Chirakli is a researcher at Lancaster University. In Nicosia, Christiana Arotokritou is a spokeswoman for the Democratic Party in Cyprus. And Andromachi Sophokleos is a political theory graduate and member of the Cypriot Puzzle. That's an initiative that aims to bridge the gap between the two sides of the island. Welcome, everyone, to the program. Now, Andromachi, I want to start with you. Nicosia is often described as Europe's last divided city. There are barricades, there are barbed wire. What's your daily life like? Do you feel that division?
Well, we need to draw a marking point in the history of Cyprus and of Nicosia, which was 2003, when the checkpoints were opened for the first time after 30 years. Before that, I would say that you did feel the division. You felt that you couldn't cross. You felt that there was a whole of unexplored island on the one-third in the north. However, now, since 2003, that the checkpoints were opened, everything is much more open, everything is much closer, and I don't feel the division at the moment. You feel the division when you start talking politics. You feel the division when you have to show your passport in order to be able to cross. But the general feeling is that the island is the same, but there are still barricades that obviously every day remind you that it's a divided island.
Mm. Christiana, your thoughts on that? What do you think the mood is like?
Well, the mood certainly lately is much better than what it was 10 years ago. However, we have to point to a very serious consideration, which I think goes to the heart of the Cyprus problem. It is a consideration both for the Turkish Cypriots and for the Greek Cypriots. Now, the Turkish army, unfortunately, is still present in Cyprus since 1974. If you consider that there are roughly 45,000 heavily armed Turkish troops in the occupied part of Cyprus, which is something that actually led the United Nations Secretary General to state the obvious and to state the reality that Cyprus is one of the most heavily militarized countries in the world, considering the number of people and the area of the country. Now, if we remove that obstacle, and if we truly believe that we can respect each other and fight for each other's rights and obligations, fight for the Turkish Cypriot rights and also fight for the Greek Cypriot rights, then I do believe that we have a common future and we can build a common future as long as the aim is a joint one. A completely independent Cyprus, free for all its legal inhabitants, free to enjoy all the fruits that the European Union offers, free to enjoy all the fruits that the geographical position of the island can offer. However, this can only be done if we break away all the chains that tie us directly or indirectly to the past. And that certainly include the Turkish troops in the occupied area.
Before we get too far into the politics of this, Malika, we put out a question to our community about people who live there, who have crossed over maybe to the other side and what the feeling was like for them. So you have Hussein over here from the Turkish side who crosses to the Greek side, he says 2 or 3 times a week, saying, I have 2 sons aged 9 and 6. Sometimes it's funny to watch them play with Greek kids, them speaking Greek and mine speaking Turkish. And then we have Andreas from the other side saying it feels somewhat foreign when he crosses to crossing to the Turkish side. Anyone younger than 45 has never lived there. Memories through parents and grandparents only. Ozdil, if you were to see a reunification, do you think that the other side is going to feel like home for you?
It already does. I sent my son to be educated on the Greek Cypriot side. He graduated just last year, and he went to school there for 7 years. So I think it's also a matter of personal preference, whether you would like to enjoy the island as a united island or not. Already, that opportunity now exists since 2003 to integrate with each other, to socialize with each other. So I think Cyprus is a very peculiar case where we do have 2 sides, but we do have an open border. We do have an unresolved conflict, but on a day-to-day, person-to-person basis, things are quite good. We even socialize with our Greek Cypriot friends who we do not think alike on the prospects of unification, but nevertheless, we get along on a personal level. There are very serious issues still at the table, and we are trying to resolve it. But I think relative to recent past, we are at a much better stage. Many of the things underlined by Christiana has already been agreed by the 2 leaders, that Cyprus is going to be united as a federation with single citizenship, single sovereignty, single international personality, and where principles on which the European Union is founded will be applied, upheld all over the island.
You mentioned the talks. You, of course, are a negotiator. You were there. What was discussed? What concrete was discussed?
Well, all outstanding issues are being taken up. Governance, power sharing related issues, property related issues, security and guarantee related issues. And in almost all of these, progress has been made. This has been stated by the UN Secretary General's Special Advisor on the island. So I think we need to keep the momentum positive.
And what is,
yes?
What do you think is actually different this time? Because obviously we can see it in the ambience, we can see it in the atmosphere and the relationship between the leaders. But when you get on the negotiating table, what is it that makes you feel this time that things are better? What is it that makes you feel that you can go through things in a more easy and in a more reconciliatory way?
I think there are internal and external factors which makes us more optimistic this time. Internally, both sides are going through very difficult economic times, and I think there is growing awareness, especially among the business community, that reunification will offer much better economic development opportunities. This recent discovery of hydrocarbons has also been on the agenda of both sides, and there is growing awareness that in a united fashion, we can utilize this opportunity in a better way and maybe also help the region. Externally, the fact that European Union needs a success story. The whole region needs a success story. When you look at all the problems around us, that's very significant that we get outside help. And and there is growing trust. The current two leaders are two leaders who both had said yes to the United Nations unification plan in 2004. So we have two leaders who share a common vision regarding the future of Cyprus for the first time in our history.
So I'm going to pause you there because I know our community
yes.
is listening to the things that you laid out, the positives, and I know that they then have things that they want to ask. So go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, we have people who are, counting what concerns there are. From the Greek Cypriot side, you have Alex who says it's a complicated issue. Greek Cypriots care about three things, in my opinion: the right of return, the demographics, and then the Turkish military presence in the other side of the island. Mustafa, I want to bring you into this conversation. Which do you think of these concerns is going to be the most complicated one to try to resolve to move forward with reunification?
If you don't mind, before we move on to talk about the obstacles, I do have a question, a quick question for Mr. Nami. Now, he did mention of outside help, and we do know that Mr. Akinci, the Turkish Cypriot leader, currently in Brussels, and I wonder what is the Turkish Cypriot side's expectation from the EU, both in relation to the negotiations, but also in general in terms of its relationship with the Turkish Cypriot community.
Well, the European Union offers us a great opportunity to feel confident about the unification, and as you know, Cyprus is already a member of the European Union, but the EU law is suspended in the north. What we are seeking from the European Union right now is to help facilitate the harmonization process between the two sides. So when the unification in fact happens, we won't need barriers between the two sides just because the EU law is suspended in the north. The more prepared we are for unification, the better our chances for a harmonious integration between the two sides.
So Ozan, when we talk about that
yes.
harmonious integration, I want to bring up a point that Christiana raised earlier, and this was about the troops. My estimates, the estimates that we here at the stream have found, say there are about 35,000 Turkish troops that remain, that are in the north part of the country. And Christiana, that still remains a concern to you. What do you want to happen?
Well, I think we should all agree on demilitarization of Cyprus. That is the only way that we can go forward. We are a member of the Republic of Cyprus is a member of the European Union. Why don't we trust each other and put our security in the hands of the United Nations, if anybody has any concerns, or in the hands of the European Union? We definitely do not need, and we cannot survive in the future as a united Cyprus when foreign troops are present in the island. Now, I think that we have to be honest with each other and voice our true concerns. And the presence of any foreign troops, whether they are Turkish or otherwise, currently they're only Turkish, irrespective of the number. Today you can create warfare with a very limited number of boots on the ground. Now, the mention of the Annan plan was made by my friend Dostil earlier.
Christiana, I'm actually going to pause you there because for our international audience who's watching today, the Annan plan referencing Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General, was in the past. And we're looking forward to the plan, the talks that are happening right now, and what could possibly move those forward. So go ahead.
I could not agree with you more. But exactly on the issue of security, we have to agree that we can have no foreign troops in Cyprus, and the Turkish army has to withdraw.
If I could just make a quick comment about Christiana's assertion here. it's important to recognize that there are divergent opinions on this, and these sensitivities are rooted in the Cyprus problem. And for the Turkish Cypriots, we have to acknowledge that quite a significant number of Turkish Cypriots do feel that they are concerned about their physical security, and they would like to see some form of guarantees remaining.
If
So
I may
I think
also add on
we'll have to acknowledge the fact that there are divergent opinions here, and we have to figure out how we can bridge the differences.
And Mustafa, you can see those divergent opinions here. We'll go to Andromahi first, and then our community. I know all of you had something to say about that, but Andromahi, go ahead.
Now, I would just like to mention, because you spoke about the future, and I think that the rhetoric that Mrs. Erodocritou is representing is, in all respects, noble, but it does, and we do not claim in any way that we want Turkish troops in Cyprus. I do not claim in any way, but I do feel that we are too much. We are too much embedded into this rhetoric of this political rhetoric that we do not look into the future. And the future
It's a reality, it's not rhetoric.
I'm sorry. Of course, it's a reality, but it's also reality.
We have to face the realities and be honest.
Of course, but you are not facing the reality that you have created a generation of Cypriots who are apathetic towards the issue because they do not know the history of the issue. Throughout the years, since 1974, we have been bombarded with a version of history which is not accurate, which is choosing to put light on the negative facts, which is choosing to put light on the victim side of the story, but we have never in our rhetoric put emphasis on what we did wrong, on where we were mistaken. And if we want to look at the future, we need to be able to identify where we went wrong in order to be able to amend our mistakes and not to repeat them. And sadly, our politicians for the past 40 years have not in any way prepared us to be able to look at our mistakes.
So, Andromahi, just on the point that you just raised, if you guys just give me one moment, we have the community here online that would like to come in, who are raising the issue of basically the cultural aspect of this, of focusing on the negative. So you have Suplex over here who says, Turkish Cypriots, one piece. I've come across many Greek Cypriots who proudly let you know that they don't like the Turks, be they Cypriots or not. And you have Hasso over here who says, it depends on what reunified means. More appropriate question, will the Greek Cypriots accept Turkish Cypriots as their political equal partners in sovereignty? Uzdil, is this something that you've have direct experience with in terms of what the feeling is among Turkish Cypriots, whether they can be accepted as equals?
No. On both of these issues, both on political equality and on security, the political leadership on both sides have advanced to a very advanced stage whereby the political equality is no longer in question. There is mutual respect. This can be evidenced in the joint statement by the leaders throughout years. And also when you look at the convergences achieved at the negotiating table, the issue of political equality, the concepts like sovereignty have been successfully tackled. But regarding this security needs, of course, this is arising from the mistrust between the two sides. And Andromahi has a point there that history teaching on both sides is problematic. There has been some attempts to give a more fair picture of the history of what happened in Cyprus to youngsters, but a much better work needs to be done. The Cyprus problem started in 1964, not 1974. The first United Nations Security Council resolution on Cyprus was taken in 1964. Therefore, we have to have this picture. However, I think we can feel more confident that the security aspect will also be dealt in an amicable manner. The Turkish side is not insisting that thousands of Turkish troops will have to remain on the island. Maybe we don't like referring to the Annan plan of 11 years ago, but when we said yes as a Turkish Cypriot community to that plan, we also said yes to the removal of Turkish troops.
Noted.
And
Okay,
back
all
to
right.
the
So
levels
Ozdil,
in 1960.
that part is noted. Then now we have moved on from the presence of Turkish
We are
troops.
still there. We are still there.
I want to go back to Andromahi, though,
So,
because she raised something.
Ozdil,
She said
if
there was criticism of the previous talks, and she thinks that politicians in the past have not done things right. So, Andromahi, what would you like to see moving forward? What would you like to see your politicians do on both sides of this island that you think will then get us to the point where Cyprus should be?
Well, I would like to see a genuine approach towards the issue. And I feel, and I think that I speak on behalf of my generation, that we have been fed with slogans for the past 40 years, slogans that do not represent the truth, and slogans that clearly cannot give us a basis for the future. And I would like our politicians to start speaking a more genuine language. And to be honest, I don't merely depend upon politicians anymore, because I have understood that behind closed doors, nothing can happen. We have to reach to the people. We need to let these people speak, and we need to bring the people together. And this apathy that has been created in my generation towards the Turkish Cypriots is what is the most difficult obstacle to face. Because if you have been born and raised with a negative image of the other, when you are called to live with him, when you are called to share powers with him, then unless you have a fair understanding of history, then you cannot do it. And I think that my generation is still not ready to do it. And I think that we should just let the people speak. And we see that the young people today might be able, without the burdens of the past, without all the traumas of the past, we might be able to form a better future together, as long as we know our history and as long as we know what we did wrong
Speaking
and what our
of
mistakes are.
history, Andromahi, we have people online who are looking backwards. We have Amin over here who says, there is peace in Cyprus and there has been since 1974. Change that and the killing will start again. If you want bloodshed, then try to reunify. So that's looking backwards at history and drawing this conclusion. On the other hand, Umut says, nobody wants to forget the past, but it's all over. We and our children are not from the war generation. Mustafa, from your
I think
perspective,
that my generation is not a war-seeking generation, and that we need to emphasize it, and on that we need to build. We are not a war-seeking generation, and we are not a violent generation.
Yes, but we are not a misled generation either, as well.
Of course we are a misled generation.
I would disagree. I don't think that there is any hate or bad feelings between, especially the younger generation, which is obviously the four of us right now speaking. I don't think there are any ill feelings, and knowing what happened in Cyprus maybe will give us a better way of understanding each other and not repeating the mistakes in the future.
Yep.
And therefore, I don't think that the new generation in Cyprus, either the Turkish Cypriot generation or the Greek Cypriot generation, has been born and bred and raised with hate. I think we have left that in the past. Now, we cannot confuse that with the need and the urgency for a solid solution to the Cyprus problem to be put in place for the future.
just because we're running short on time, I want to get to what I just want to get to what Mustafa thinks about this. Do you think there's too much?
If I could just jump in, yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, just a couple of quick thoughts. I mean, we are talking about security, and we have to acknowledge it that, yes, these are difficult negotiations, and there are differences on the table. But we have to remember that if there's political will, there is always a way. And it is important also, and this happened very recently, if we remember a statement from Mr. Akıncı's spokesperson. He made it very clear that security is not a taboo subject anymore for the Turkish Cypriot side. And this is a very clear sign that everything is on the table, and these issues will be discussed, and they will be looking for a solution. Which,
Mustafa,
again,
it's
brings
great to hear you
to
say
what
that.
Cristiano was saying. About the need to prepare people for reunification. I fully agree with that. This wasn't done so far, and we can't just count on track one diplomacy or the diplomacy at the political level. But
Mustafa Chirekli, I'm going to pause you there, mostly because I know Cristiano wants to debate something you said. We're going to have to get that rebuttal in the post-show, Cristiano. We're going to have to get it in the post-show, unfortunately. That's all the time we have on this main show. And also we'll talk about, if not now, when. does reunification happen? That's in the post show. Now, on the next show, thousands of Armenians are protesting for better governance. We'll look at the electric Yerevan protests that are happening in Armenia's capital city. You can send us your questions on that. In the meantime, we'll see you in the post show for this discussion on Cyprus at stream.aljazeera.com. Welcome back to the Stream's online post show. We're discussing the prospect of reunification of Cyprus. Let's get right back to that conversation. I had to pause Mustafa as we headed into the post show. He was talking about obstacles that still exist. Christiana was getting into that conversation because I know you know there are still obstacles, but it sounded like you had a little bit of a contention with that. Christiana, do you want to pick that up?
Point that Mustafa was making regarding the matter of security. The core problem is that, unfortunately, my Turkish Cypriot friends cannot decide on the security issue. We asked them to help us. We asked them to join us in order to make Cyprus a true free country. Unfortunately, this decision is not up to the Greek Cypriots. It's not up to the Turkish Cypriots. It is unfortunately up to the government of Turkey. And this, I think, is a common fight. It's a common plight for the people of Cyprus, both for the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots as well. If we really truly want to take over our own country and run it ourselves, then this should be a common project. It should be a common aim. It should be a common dream for the future of Cyprus, not to have any foreign troops. And I think that is
But Christiana, of course, that is a point that Özdil has already raised, has already talked about, and has said, harkening back to where I didn't want to harken back to, the Annan talks, that was something that was already on the table and agreed upon, that that was the way forward, that there should not be troops. So I want to go to our community here because I know they want to pick up on this conversation as well.
Yeah, we have Yorgos actually who directed the tweet to Christiana saying, I hope she understands that the strongest push to get Turkey to withdraw would be an agreement between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. So that would be something to push forward for. But we also have this video comment from Christos. Take a listen to this.
Reunification of the island will save both communities, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. At the same time, will create great opportunities for development in the southeastern Mediterranean Sea, and will give the opportunity to Cyprus to be a factor of stability in the whole region.
Yeah, Özdil, on that last point, do you think that there is, in terms of talking about regional implications, how big of a positive impact could a unified Cyprus actually have?
Oh, very significant, so much so that the US Vice President came to the island in support of the peace process, and EU head of the EU Commission, Juncker, is expected to arrive very soon. So the attention is here. Resolution of the Cyprus issue will not only enable Turkey-EU accession negotiations to be revitalized with all its implications, but will enable EU and NATO to engage in much better cooperation. I have mentioned the hydrocarbons reserves around the island of Cyprus. Maybe we can connect all neighboring countries in the region together and transport these hydrocarbons in a unified fashion to the Europe, which is the main market. So the regional implications are huge, and the region needs a success story to inspire the peace processes in this part of the world.
And Jamahi?
Can I just start? Yeah, I would just like to add to what Christos said and to what Özdil had said at the very beginning. The financial benefit that you see discussed on a diplomatic level as well. But if we bring it down to the people, and I can see this from my discussions amongst people, it is an issue of concern at the moment. It is an issue that adds to the positive and to the benefits of a possible solution. Because let us not forget that the detrimental financial state in which the South is today, we all understand today how beneficial a solution would be for the exploration of the whole of Ireland, in order to develop the whole of Ireland. And I think that is also an issue that is not only reflecting the positive sides of the negotiations themselves, but also the positive feeling amongst the people as well. Or at least it will be a factor that might lead to a more positive feeling within the people.
So Mustafa, we've talked about the positives. Are there any potential negatives? What will each side have to give up in order for this to actually work?
Well, it's a negotiation process. So in terms of things to give up, well, there will have to be concessions. Both sides will have to move on certain issues to strike a deal. But if I can just respond to some of Christiana's comments about the position of Turkey. Now, I agree, yes, Turkey is a key decision maker in all this. And we do know, it's not a secret, that Cyprus has strategic importance within the Turkish foreign policy thinking. But we have to try and counterbalance this with the potential gains that will be available to Turkey straight
Which are
away.
what are those potential gains?
Finding a solution. This would be certainly a much more stable region. In terms of Cyprus could provide perhaps a model for the rest of the region as a stable country. But also in terms of the geostrategic considerations in relation to the exploration of hydrocarbons. Now, Turkey wants to be part of this. And the only way they can actually be part of this is through a solution. So,
Mustafa,
yes, Turkey may want to try and maintain some kind of involvement, and they may want to retain some of the provisions of the guarantees, but they will also be much more willing to try and strike a deal on this because of the reasons that I mentioned.
Christiana?
Mustafa, can I ask you something? Don't you, I find what, the points that you and Ostil have made extremely interesting. However, if you look at the greater picture, don't you find it quite interesting that the security issue in Cyprus can only go via the presence, even of a limited number of Turkish troops? The energy matter in Cyprus, basically, from what I understand, can also only go via a pipeline to Turkey. Now, it seems to me that we're laying down the infrastructure for Cyprus to be in the future a satellite state of Turkey. Now, that obviously cannot be the common dream that you and I share for this common land that we have.
I don't agree with the conclusion that you arrived,
I don't think I could go along with that either.
I think three guests on our panel don't agree. Ostil, we'll hear from you first. Ostil, go ahead.
No, we are talking about creating a much bigger interdependence. Clearly, first you need to satisfy Turkish Cypriots regarding security. There must be creative ways of achieving this. As long as Turkish Cypriots feel secure about their future, Turkey is there to support us, as they have done throughout these years. But Christiana is missing the point.
But don't you worry about
that
the Greek Cypriot security?
Themselves. All right, so that's where the trick lies, okay? So don't make the assumption that we as Turkish Cypriots feel totally secure living with the Greek Cypriots just by ourselves. We cannot pretend. You talked about the fact that we need to be honest. So I'm trying to be as honest as I can. I invite you to say that, you know, this is a fact. The vast majority of Turkish Cypriots feel secure only with some Turkish involvement under this chapter. How we are going to give life to this?
I think the question is, what does that Turkish involvement look like? That is a question for another show. On this show, we are talking about the reunification and how we get there. Of course, that is a contentious issue, but as we're running out of time, I want to go around all of our guests and ask you a question. You can give me your answer in about 1 or 2 lines because we are wrapping up the show. But I want to know how you envision the future of Cyprus. Ostil, I'll start with you.
Well, it's clear we are going to have a united Cyprus, a member of the European Union, where EU law is applied all over, a bizonal, bicommunal federation. And we are working very hard to that goal, and we have made progress in that direction.
Mustafa?
There is a great opportunity right now to really strike a deal and reunify the island. There may be significant obstacles, but if people will, there is always a way. And we have to always bear in mind, of course, that people will also have to be on board. So this is something that the political leadership on both sides will have to bear in mind as they progress.
Christiana?
Well, I still believe that we have to share the common dream of an absolutely free and sovereign Cyprus. That is a common land to both communities. However, it cannot directly or indirectly in any way be linked or tied to any other country, whether that be Turkey or that be Greece, because that would not put down the solid foundations for a peaceful coexistence in the future.
And Zermahi?
Well, I think that if there is no solution now, I do not think that there will be a unification of Cyprus. I think there will be different sort of solutions. The way I envision it, and that will give the positive aspect, is a unified Cyprus in which we will have a full understanding of our history, of our past, in which the younger generation will be willing to work and to look forward, leaving aside the animosities of the past, but always with a clear understanding of what we did wrong. And the only way for Mrs. Erotocritou to be able to guarantee against the satellite state of Turkey is to be able to create a consciousness of Cypriots who care about this island. And in order for us to do it, we need to look in our history and really reflect upon our past and our mistakes. That's the only way to guarantee a stronger future.
Ozdil, before I get our last thoughts from our community, and Zermahi basically said it is now or never for this. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What is the time frame for reunification? Is there just more talks, or is there a deadline?
There is no official deadline, but there is an understanding that it should not take years, but months.
Months. You heard it here first on the stream, Ozdil Nami. You also heard from Mustafa Chirakli, Christiana Erotocritou, and Zermahi Sophocleos. Thank you all for being on the show. Last words from our community, Omar.
We have some thoughts here that end on a positive note. You have Euripides, who says, if we cannot agree about the history of the past, let us at least agree about the history of the future. And you have Yenner here on Facebook who says, the trauma suffered by the people of this beautiful island is still ongoing and will take a lot of healing. We must be prepared to say sorry to each other and move forward because the future is ours together.
I love that. As you were reading those comments, our guests were all nodding their heads in agreement. So a little bit of agreement here on this show. Just enough time to tell you about our next show. Thousands of Armenians are protesting for better governance. We'll look at the electric Yerevan protests that are happening in Armenia's capital city. You can send us your questions on that. Until then, we'll see you next time.